Wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Hello, YouTube, are you there? Hello, let's make sure it's working. Looks like the streams are still connecting, but it looks like we're live. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show. So together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight, my voice of accountability, transparency, and justice down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today because we've got a lot to get into. We're going to revisit what's going on with General Milley, not Miley like Miley Cyrus. It's General Milley like Vanilli. He's in hot water still over the new book that came out from Bob Woodward saying that he called the Chinese and gave them warnings about what the U.S. is doing. Theoretically, maybe something that happened. And so that story broke yesterday. We have a lot of reaction from many people in government about these allegations. We're going to hear from Senator Tom Cotton, who is kind of skeptical about these allegations from Bob Woodward, said, let's wait and see what Bob Milley had to say, what General Milley had to say about all this. So we'll hear from him. We've got Marco Rubio also speculating about the source who gave Bob Woodward this information in the first place. Was it General Milley himself? We're going to find out. And we've also got different people reacting that were a part of Trump's team. In particular, we have Defense Secretary who said that he did not authorize those calls at all. His name is Christopher Miller. And so he was publishing, a lot of information is coming out about General Milley and what happened there. And so we've got a statement from General Milley himself kind of acknowledging that some of this stuff did happen. So we're going to start to tease out what is really going on here. We know that General Milley is scheduled to be in front of Congress, and so we're sort of trying to see where this is going to go. In our next segment, we've got we got to revisit the border because in August, we have our new August numbers on the southern border, and there were over 200,000 encounters at the border. And there is a makeshift migrant camp with thousands of people now set up right under a bridge on the U.S. side in Del Rio, Texas. And so we've got some maps, we've got some drone footage, and we're going to show you a picture, a horrible, horrendous picture of abandoned children. Kids in bushes, not cages, kids in bushes. So we're going to take a look at that and check in what is going on at the Department of Homeland Security. We've also got to check back in with a federal judge out of New York who put a halt to New York's vaccine passport that is coming through, said that is not going to be something that is going to continue on, granted a temporary injunction. And so we're going to take a look at that. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away over there, making fun of my voice. Voice sounds painful, says Justice Obsessed. A little bit. And I'm not sure what's going on, but we're just going to keep powering through the show. We've got Jeremy Matrita over there, Vienticus Prime. We got Dallas Photography, who used to be Miss Danny. We have Sir Kexalot. Jeremy's in the house, chairman of the board, and of course, Farmer's Daughter. All over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Over on YouTube, shout outs to Just Cows. We have Diane B. We've got Lean, Kenneth Botine. We've got many people. We have the average MAGA capital terrorist is here. He says Robert is recovering from COVID because he was vaxxed. So a lot of commentary happening over there. Nobody's over on Rumble chatting away over there, but that's okay. If you want to ask a question and be on the show, if you're a supporter at Locals, this is the form to use. You can go over there, fill out this form. We'll make sure we can do our very best to get to your questions, provided my voice continues to hold. If you're looking for the clips of the show, they're over at Robert Gruler ESQ /clips, and that will be a good that will be a good channel to subscribe to. Had a super chat just came in from Chris Walney. Chris Walney gave me some education on how to pronounce Milley, like Vanilli. Says, sounds like you had a late night of karaoke and booze. I wish. That would have been a lot more fun than whatever the hell is going on with my body right now. But thank you for that, Chris Walney. All right, so let's get into the news of the day, shall we? General Milley is still in hot water after new excerpts came out from Bob Woodward's new book saying that he called the Chinese and maybe gave them an indication that he was going to communicate America's military operations over to the general of China. Kind of a big claim. Recall yesterday we talked about the exact excerpts that came out of the book. You'll notice here, this was reported from the Washington Post, and there is a exact quote. It says, General Lee, you and I have known each other for now 5 years. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. So we read through this yesterday at length, went through all the different allegations in Woodward's new book. And what we can see here is a direct quote, right? This is from the Washington Post. And so the Washington Post is not, this newspaper that is pro-Republicans by any stretch of the imagination. And so they're posting this basically saying that their sourcing is so good that they're going to stand by these reports. And so we're going to take a look at this in greater detail because a lot of people are sort of thumbing their noses at this, saying that this sounds far-fetched. We're going to hear from Tom Cotton in a minute. Before we do that, let's take a look at what the Joint Chiefs of Staff does. What does the chairman actually do? I went over to their website at jcs.mil, and you'll notice that this was an entity that was created in 1986, identifies the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff as the senior ranking member of the armed forces. He's the principal military advisor to the president. An advisor may seek advice of and consult with other Joint Chief members and combatant members. When he presents his advice, he presents a range of advice to everybody. Under the Act, the secretaries of the military departments assign all forces to combatant commands except those assigned to carry out the mission of the services. The chain of command to these commands runs from the president to the secretary of defense directly to the commander of the combatant command. Okay? So you see how this is going? President, secretary of defense, commander of the command. Okay? The chairman of the Joint Chiefs may transmit communications to the commanders from the president and the secretary of defense, but does not exercise military command over any combatant forces. So do you see what they're saying here? This is directly from their own website, right? This is from the jcs.mil. Go look it up. It says that this person can communicate to the commanders, may transmit stuff from the president and the secretary of defense. So he's not allowed to just go around and run his mouth and do whatever he wants. He's a liaison between the president and the military. The act gives the chairman functions and responsibilities previously assigned elsewhere, and you can read the rest of it. But that's essentially what it is. He's just sort of an advisor, a liaison, somebody who communicates back and forth. He's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, communicates from the president to the secretary of defense to the commanders. So now we know what he's allowed to do. We have to ask ourselves, did he extend that? Did he exceed the scope of what was lawful and allowed? Over here is the actual statement from General Milley, like Vanilli. A statement by the Joint Staff spokesperson, chairman's conversations with the chiefs of defense across the world. Published September 15th from Washington, came from spokesman Colonel Dave Butler, says, quote, the chairman of the Joint Chief regularly communicates with chiefs of defense across the world, including China and Russia. These conversations are vital to U.S. interests, reduces tensions, and blah, blah, blah. His calls with Chinese and others in October and January were in keeping with these duties and responsibilities, conveying reassurance in order to maintain strategic stability. Okay. All calls from the chairman to his counterparts, including those reported, are staffed, coordinated, and communicated with the Department of Defense and the interagency. Also in keeping with his responsibilities as senior military advisor to the president and secretary of defense, he frequently conducts meetings with uniformed leaders across the services to ensure all leaders are aware of current issues. The meeting regarding the nuclear weapons protocols was to remind uniformed leaders in the Pentagon of the long-established and robust procedures in light of the media reporting on the subject. He continues to act and advise within his lawful authority in the lawful tradition of civilian control of the military and his oath to the Constitution. So, sort of publishing something that just says, yeah, all normal, business as usual, nothing strange happened here. And maybe there's truth to that, right? If conservatives or Republicans, anytime Bob Woodward comes out and releases a new book that is critical of Trump or that is critical of Republicans, it's very easy to just kind of thumb your nose at that and say, well, it's political salaciousness, right? All it is political gossip. You could say Woodward is a gossip columnist. He's out there just kind of mucking around in the political news, and he's trying to get headlines. He's trying to extend this stuff and make much ado about nothing. And General Milley comes out and basically says that. Yeah, we called him. Yeah, we called him definitely. And we also sat down and communicated with everybody over from the Secretary of Defense onward about nuclear weapons protocols. And we had meetings where we were able to just remind them, that's all, about these situations. But is that his role? Is that his authority? We're going to have to dig into it. Tom Cotton doesn't think that this is really that big of a deal. He was on with Fox and Friends this morning, and here's an excerpt from that.
Well, Ainsley, this book raises some serious concerns. I'd say some of the allegations seem somewhat far-fetched to me. But General Milley and Secretary Austin are going to be testifying in front of Congress in just a few days, and we'll address these concerns. We don't want to jump to conclusions yet, but we'll certainly vet them and see exactly what happened.
Senator, he's got to speak.
We
Senator,
have a principle of civil.
Senator, this is too big for this. We can't wait for him to testify. If this guy is selling us out to China, going behind the President of the United States, and he's still in power, fresh off of the catastrophe in Afghanistan, he's got to address this.
Brian, I know he will address it, and we'll ensure that he addresses it. But this is one of those claims, obviously, that seems a little far-fetched, the idea that an American military general is going to warn an adversary if an attack is coming. As you say, when Donald Trump was never even thinking about a military attack against China, the whole thing is pretty far-fetched.
Pretty far-fetched, right? And that's kind of what you hope to believe. We were absolutely hoping that that would be the case. We were reading the excerpt yesterday on the show going, what? We're going to warn you if anything happens, right? That's actually putting military service members in line because China would be able to then prepare their defenses and counterstrike. So it sounds outrageous. It sounds like it's nuts. Like that could never happen. So that's why it's worth investigating. Axios is reporting. They say this is Mark Milley's crisis. They say that he's going to go before Congress on September 28th. He was supposed to go there to answer questions about Afghanistan, but that's going to change pretty quickly. Driving the news, we've got newly released excerpts from Peril by Bob Woodward and others detailing secret moves to the highest-ranking military officers throughout the country. The big picture, Republicans were already irate with Milley for playing a starring role in a string of Trump books. Milley has been, communicating about all of the books that have come out. Very juicy quotes in there. Even some of his friends are cringing over his extensive and high-profile scenes in these books and perceptions that he's participated, quote, on deep background with multiple authors. So is Milley himself communicating this to the authors? Extensive direct quotes attributed to Milley have led Republicans to accuse him of personally leaking to authors. And of course, those are just Republicans. So they're going to say that, of course, because they want to make much ado about nothing. But now we got to dig into this a little bit further. We have Jennifer Griffen over from Fox News. She posted this on Twitter. She said, Pentagon officials, General Milley did not try to insert himself into the chain of command regarding the launch of nuclear weapons, but he made sure everyone knew what their roles were and what they weren't. They reviewed lawful launch procedures following Pelosi's phone call, which, is obviously an interesting phone call. We read through that one. Nancy Pelosi was calling Trump a big fat butt. Said he had a big fat butt over there, which is really nice conversations when you're talking about, America, talking to the Joint Chiefs. So we made that point yesterday. If this was just, a sit down and saying, listen, just a refresher, this could be something that is totally reasonable. She goes on, Jennifer says, I am told that General Milley had 2 routine calls with his Chinese counterpart and more than a dozen calls with NATO allies after January 6 to reassure them the government was stable, to reassure China the U.S. was not planning a surprise attack in an effort to avoid a misunderstanding. And you're going, what evidence was there that there was going to be some sort of attack from Donald Trump? Well, we don't know, but maybe General Milley did. So Jennifer Griffen tells us all ordinary. Everything is according to plan. It was regular routine business. She's over from Fox News. We go back over to Washington Post. We get a different story. Washington Post, Josh Rogin says senior Trump admin national security official to me on General Milley's reported secret calls to the Chinese. Says, quote, it was dangerous for Mark Milley to be doing freelance diplomacy on China without involving any of the other senior officials dealing with China at the time. Nuts. Milley was making these phone calls at a time when the U.S. government was in the middle of a very complicated discussions with and actions against the PRC. For him to take this sort of action without any interagency coordination is astonishing. The risk is, Josh Rogin continues, Milley could have caused the Chinese to miscalculate and take some sort of diplomatic, economic, or military action with far-ranging consequences because he was giving the wrong signal, having no understanding of the context in which he was making the call. He just called, hey, look, I know what you saw. I know you're freaking out. I know you saw the January 6th insurrection. I know you saw the guy with the podium. You probably think, like I did, that means they control the country now. I just learned they don't actually control the country. We're still in control. But just relax. And so the Chinese, of course, they're going, oh, America's in a state of weakness. Assure us some more there, General Milley. What else do you have for us? And he's literally providing aid and comfort. Oh, it's going to be okay. We're not going to attack you. And what Josh Rogin over from Washington Post is saying is that he's got a source who was inside the Trump administration saying, this is inappropriate because we were also trying to do diplomatic actions at the same time. And General Milley was undermining our efforts. From the Washington Post. Jennifer then, over on Twitter, says to Josh, oh, this is not true. She posted this in response to his statement. Of course, Rogin said, or Rogin, however you say his name, says that this was a problem. Could have caused China to miscalculate. Jennifer Griffen from Fox News says, I'm told this is not true. There were 15 people on the video teleconference calls, including a representative of the State Department, and the readout and notes from Milley's 2 calls with his Chinese counterpart were shared with the intelligence community and the interagency. Oh, so maybe Josh Rogin has a little bit of a bad source. Maybe Jennifer's right. Maybe all this stuff is by the book. Maybe Tom Cotton's exactly right, that General Milley was just having phone calls. It's all documented. It's all by the book. Nothing to see here. So Josh Rogin then responds to Jennifer Griffen and says, I'm told this, what Jennifer tweeted, is not true. So they've got competing sources now. Milley did not properly coordinate. SAO says when Milley did these calls, it was with joint staff and nobody from OSD participated in it. If someone from the State Department was on the call, the joint staff should say who it is. So they're playing back and forth, right? There's multiple people saying different things. Jennifer Griffen from Fox News says, oh no, it was all by the book, all perfectly fine. We have somebody over from Josh Rogin in the Washington Post saying, not true at all. It was the joint staff. It wasn't everybody else who needed statutorily to be involved in this thing. So it sounds like they're all just pointing their fingers at each other again. So they started to go and investigate with some other Trumpers, people who were in his administration. We just read what the Joint Chief is supposed to do. He's a liaison. He communicates what the president wants to do, what the Secretary of Defense wants to do. He's not able to be in direct military command. He's not a direct commander of anybody. He gives advice. Essentially, that's it. So if he was making these calls, if he was soothing things over with China, if he was communicating with Nancy Pelosi, if he was holding meetings with actual military commanders, you would imagine that that would have to be done with the permission of the president, wouldn't it? He'd have to run it by Trump. He'd have to run it by the Secretary of Defense. by his own website. They say so. So Fox News said that didn't happen. Trump's acting defense secretary Miller says, quote, he did not authorize Milley China calls, says he should resign. Christopher Miller called the report an unprecedented act of insubordination. Okay, and let's confirm now that we're not speculating as much about a lot of this anymore. Okay, we're talking about the phone call, and it sounds like the phone call was made. It sounds like Milley actually acknowledged that in his own statement, his press release. He's saying, yeah, we made those calls. We call a lot of people. I call people all the time. And so now we have to sort of narrow the scope of our analysis. Now, is it about the content of that phone call, or is the phone call alone problematic because the Secretary of Defense did not authorize these calls? He was not in the loop on any of this. Exclusive. Former acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller, who led the Pentagon from the period after the 2020 election through Inauguration Day, said that, quote, he did not and would not ever authorize Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Milley to have, quote, secret calls with his Chinese counterpart, calling the allegations as a disgraceful and unprecedented act of insubordination, calling him to resign immediately. In a statement to Fox News, Miller said that the United States Armed Forces from its inception has operated under the inviolable principle of civilian control of the military. The Joint Chiefs is the highest ranking military officer whose sole role is providing military specific advice to the president. By law is prohibited from exercising executive authority to command forces. The chain of command runs from the president to the Secretary of Defense, not through the chairman. So that's Trump's former Secretary of Defense just not approving of it. We also are hearing from other senators throughout the country. Here is Marco Rubio saying if Milley calling his Chinese counterpart was just normal and regular communication, why are those calls newsworthy? If the account of those calls in a new book is accurate, these calls were neither regular nor heroic. They were treacherous and dangerous. Marco Rubio's in his car, and he's given us a little snippet of his take here.
And what I was hoping we would have today is a denial that this is not true, that this is all made up. Instead, we just saw a statement from General Milley. And here's what the statement says. The statement says that any phone calls he's made are normal phone calls that he makes all the time. Well, let me ask you a question. If these are normal phone calls like the kinds he makes every night, then why is this a story? If these are the normal phone calls he's making all the time, then why is this even relevant? Why are we talking about it? The reason why we're talking about it is because it's being presented as something that was unusual. It's being presented by the reporters as something that is something we've never had to see before in American history, okay? And here's the second problem I have. Who's the source of all this?
Yeah.
I don't think these reporters made it up. If they made it up, then General Milley should say this is a lie, it's a fabrication. I think General Milley, it's clear now, was the source. I think he talked to them. I think he portrayed it that way. I think he told them this wasn't normal. I had to do this for the good of our country because he wanted to make himself look good. He wanted to make himself look good. That's why he would do it.
Yeah, that's why he would do it. It's the same guy who was out there in front of the Senate, I think it was, complaining about white rage. You know, he sort of likes the limelight to some degree. And what we're, if they're direct quotes, if he goes and talks to Woodward and said, yeah, this is what I said. This is what I had to do. You know, Trump was such a monster that I needed to sort of dictatorially seize control of the military out from under him. Very troubling. So what's going to happen with Milley? We'll find out. He's got scheduled plans for appearing on September 28th, going to focus on the chairman's behind-the-scenes action during the final days of Trump. Members are gunning for Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also to come. We have Axios, somebody reported on Tuesday, the Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Menendez, we talked about this yesterday, threatened Austin and other Biden officials who declined to voluntarily appear before the committee. So General Milley's then going to be in front of Congress in about 13 days, and we'll see if they ask him any questions, and we'll see if he gives any meaningful answers, and we'll see if anybody does anything about any of this. But my guess is probably not. Let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got some questions coming in the house. We have Oh, that's on a different segment. We have one for... No, that's on a different segment. Okay, so El Mexican from LA says, if Joe Biden had a backbone, he would fire and charge General Miley Cyrus. Once a traitor, always a traitor. He's a threat to national security. That's El Mexican. We have, that's an, These are out of order. These questions are out of order. We have, hold on. Somebody said I'm not live on Rumble. Let's see if we are. I think we're live over there. I think we're live. Thanks for the heads up. Let's see what else we've got. Got to move some things around. All right, we've got another one over here from Thunder7 says, so not only is woke Milley a traitor, he's also a spy. Isn't the death penalty the punishment for treason? Maybe they can give him a teddy bear to cuddle while they put him in front of a firing squad. White rage man gone. It is the death penalty, or I think it's a lot of time in prison. But remember, almost nobody's been prosecuted for that, so I don't think that he will either. We have Monster One says, Alexander Vindman, the guy behind the first Trump impeachment, even came out and said this is a clear violation of the military code. When you have someone who suffers from Trump derangement as bad as Vindman does, calling you out, you know it's bad. I'm not surprised the spineless Republicans would immediately try to discredit the story. God forbid they actually had to do work. P.S. I gave you some bad information yesterday. Cardi B sings WAP, not Nicki Minaj. I got my trashy rap stars confused. Oh, so you could have fooled me. I have no idea. You know, it sounded reasonable to me. So I think we're both wrong on that. That's okay. Oh, Nicki Minaj is here. Speaking of the devil, says, Rob, they banned me from Twitter from vaccine disinformation, sad face. As an immigrant, I find this very racist. You, as a white person of privilege, do you think you could promote my baby shower Saturday, October 2nd, 7 to 8 Eastern time, happy face? Yeah. Yeah, so baby shower, we have a Zoom link for that, October 2nd, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks, Nikki. Did she get banned? Really? She's got 22 million followers. Are they going to ban her for that? I'm not sure about that. Todd is here suggesting that Milley face some serious repercussions. LT13 says, or maybe he was trying to jump on ordering cheap horn hats to sell here in the States. Could have been that innocent. Yeah, maybe he was just trying to, order some products from Alibaba or something. I don't know. We have Perry Masonary says, if the SecDef was not aware of these calls, then yes, Milley was acting as a diplomat, should resign immediately. If SecDef was aware, then Milley was acting within his scope of responsibility. We'll never know. Well, Chris Miller said that he wasn't. In typical DC fashion, nothing will ever come of this. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Perry. And so did you see what SecDef Christopher Miller was actually saying when he said that? He said, no secret Chinese calls. So my next question to him would be, okay, well, did you authorize any Chinese calls? And was this ordinary in the course of business? Was this something that Milley did regularly? If so, then I think that brings it back within the scope and there's nothing there. But he said specifically that he didn't authorize anything like that. And I'm sure that Trump wouldn't have approved it either way. Pink Peep is here, says, so I'm no fan of Milley or anyone in the Biden admin, but a lot of this sounds as absurd as the Russiagate scandal with Trump. If Milley was talking to General Lee, seems like a reasonable thing to do, and the question of a surprise attack comes up, what is Milley's answer supposed to be? Of course it has to be, no, we're not going to attack you. Saying he is going to do a thing is a far cry from actually doing it. Politicians and diplomats make promises all the time to keep people happy. That's a good point there, Pink Peep. I think you're accurate on that. And I think there's a couple points on this. If it came up naturally, right, and he's having a conversation saying, no, nothing's going to happen, don't worry about it. That's crazy talk. Don't say that. Look, we've been working together for 5 years. All's good over here. That's a separate conversation. But what it sounded to me like this was him getting on the phone, calling everybody. Don't worry. We got this thing covered. It's not a meltdown like it seems like on TV. Relax. And if he's sort of doing that outside of the scope of what Trump authorized and what the Secretary of Defense authorized, that's problematic, right? And I might agree with you, Pink Peep. I might even say, look, I don't know what Trump's condition was. I didn't see anything that seemed overly problematic personally, but, I wasn't in the White House. And so you might say, well, if you're in the White House and you see a president who's having problems, you might even ask yourself, well, what are you supposed to do? I guess I'm just trying to help America, and I'm just going to call the rest of my counterparts and just deal with it. Well, the Constitution doesn't allow that to happen. There are different remedies. The 25th Amendment's an option. all sorts. He can resign if he's got certain concerns and raise a stink about it in the media. There's a lot of different ways to handle this. He just doesn't get to do whatever he feels like doing. He can't just decide, well, I think this is the best idea. That's not his role. So I think that's where the problem in all of this comes in, is that he's sort of exceeding the scope of what was authorized. And my second point, Pink Peep, is that remember what the Democrats did with a phone call. They impeached Donald Trump over that. They criminally prosecuted Michael Flynn. It dragged out for years because he called an ambassador and said, don't do anything until we get in office, essentially, during the transition. So if that is justifiable as a political sin, this absolutely is. And there should be some repercussions, but the Republicans aren't going to do jack because they're useless. Leafy Bug says, I think this happened. Neither Gina Haspel nor Pelosi has denied the calls, as described, took place. The day after Milley called Pelosi, she announced that they have control over the nuclear launch codes. And records of all these calls exist. Milley himself is silent. If this is all or mostly false, wouldn't he be denying it as loudly as possible? I think Milley's on the way out. Question is, why now? Who's behind this? Media outlets that are pretty reliable disseminators of the information the deep state wants to be made public, like WAPO, NYT, CNN. They're all the ones leaking the juicy details. Looks like the deep state hit to me. Why have they turned against Milley? Maybe the neocons are concerned about him woking up the military and reducing its fighting capability. There's probably more to it than that. What do you think? Good question. That's from Leafy Bug. I don't know. I think it might be, it might have been Milley trying to sort of curry favor with his incoming, the incoming administration, the incoming boss. He may be retiring and going and wanting to be a commentator on some major news channel. Who knows what he's doing or where he's going with this, but it is interesting, right? That it's all sort of dominoes going into effect. And if Milley is called to task for this and he's called to task for Afghanistan, maybe he becomes the scapegoat for the administration's problems in the military. Okay, yeah, enough with this guy already. But I think Biden came out and he's standing by him, so I don't think he's going anywhere. We have another one from Sir Kexalot. So what's the real news they're trying to cover up? The whole debacle smells like fake, phony, and false. Very well could be. There's a lot that they could be trying to distract from. The mandates that Joe Biden just caused that are causing serious ripple effects throughout the world. We're seeing hospitals and people saying that they're not going to be working. We're hearing maternity wards are not going to be able to be delivering babies because people are resigning. We've heard this. We've covered this on the show. People are freaked out. And so this is a nice distraction from that. Afghanistan was a disaster. Inflation's going through the roof. So a lot of people are trying to talk about other things other than those serious, serious problems that are floating around. Sharon says, what's going to come of this? Nothing. The only thing anybody cares about is about trashing Trump, getting him out of the White House, and keeping him out. That's from Sharon Quidney. Thanks, Sharon. We're going to do a quick cough break on this one. And we've got some more questions here. Let's see what else. The CCP is here. Says, don't send Milley over here. He keeps asking for bootlegged Disney movies. So annoying. He sounds like somebody who might be doing that. LT13 says, reflection by projection, or whatever the saying is. He wanted to understand white rage. His own. He's probably pretty mad right now. Let's see. We've got, oh yeah, wow. We have I guess Nicki Minaj's tweets did get locked. Twitter has locked Nicki Minaj's account for her tweets about the COVID vaccine. Oh, wow. So I guess if you are warning about swollen testicles, that is a no-no on Twitter. So be forewarned out there. Dal's Photography, also known as Miss Danny, says, Rob, I do hope you recover soon from your cold. Despite the craziness of the situation, do you know which was Kamala's ultimate purpose of her trip to East Asia while we're watching the Afghan disaster? This is how she opened the dialogue. In Hanoi, she called on Vietnam to join the U.S. in challenging China's bullying the strategically pivotal Seaway. It says, quote, we need to find ways to pressure and raise the pressure, frankly, on Beijing to abide by the UN Convention of the Law and challenge its bullying and excessive maritime claims. She said in remarks at the opening meeting with Vietnamese President Nguyen Van Phi. Taken from The Diplomat, thoughts. So it's a good question, Miss Donnie. We'll do I'll give you a quick sort of summation about what I know going on in China. My understanding is that there's going to be a new agreement between the United States and the Biden administration. And I think 2 or 3 of the other Five Eyes countries, so Australia, I think maybe the UK, are going to be in on this to sort of coordinate, share data about nuclear deterrence so that those entities can then act as a counterbalance to China. I know that Japan is now, I think, instituting or sort of activating some of their military. We know that in South Korea, they're launching missiles up into the air simultaneously with North Korea launching missiles up into the air. I mentioned this in the locals chat before the show started, but I also saw that Everglade in China is now basically defaulting, one of the biggest banks. People are comparing this to the Lehman disaster that we had here in the U.S., saying that this might be the first domino in a destabilization of the financial economy throughout the world. So there's a lot going on over there. And China is going crazy also. They're having a lot of the same problems that we have here. They're now trying to change their culture to some extent. We're seeing it all over the world. Good question, though. We have Vientica says, because someone had to do it. The Inquisition, what a show. In all seriousness, though, one thing I point out to people from my own experience is that one thing a person should always be afraid of is what they believe in. Because the more you believe in something, the less you question it. So here we see what happens when we let someone operating under beliefs, losing objectivity, has a bunch of power of privilege. Of course, he could have just done the whole thing to score points. Of course, this is all predicated on one set of information being true, but it still applies. Also, because you asked for it. Is that desk behind you an original Ron Swanson? Ron Swanson? It's not the original. You know, I couldn't afford an original Ron Swanson. Those are very, very valuable desks, as we know. We have another one from a no name, says, my point to Pete. He was acting on his own authority, is the point to Pete. We do not have military control of our government and foreign policy. He had the staff swear an oath of support. At least that is what I saw. No name on that one. Thanks for the submission. We have Greg Marat says, has accountability gotten worse over the years? I feel like no one ever gets fired anymore. Yeah, it's the government. It's just permanent employees. Indefinitely. There's nothing you can even do wrong. You just get to stay there forever. We have President Trump says, dumbass General Mark Milley should be tried for treason. Pelosi too. By the way, I never passed the nuclear codes to Biden. Trump still has those. Interesting. Dog Whistle says, I wonder why Milley would feel the need to tell China, don't worry about Trump's wrath. Did China do something concerning the election that might cause Trump to be angry? I don't know. Very interesting. Good question. Leafy Bug says, why warn China and not Russia? Russia is the one with all the nukes. I guess Milley also believes the Russia collusion hoax. Let me get this straight. Milley acted in the way he did because he was worried about Trump, like he had lost his mind. So he called China to warn them an attack might be imminent. He'll give them some forewarning. This means that China will be more than able to fight off our attack, more American lives lost. Milley was actively colluding with China. Trump hadn't lost his mind. Sure seems like Milley was crazy as hell, though. That's from Leafy Bug. Nice long comment there. Thanks, Leafy. A few more here. Pink Peep says, oh, if he was trying to usurp Trump's authority, I would 100% say it is prosecutable treason. But remember the source. They framed everything Trump said to make one-fourth of the U.S. population believe he was a Russian spy. I don't doubt this could be the same type of thing from the other side. As for political warfare, in that the Dems impeached Trump, so we should fight back, I don't disagree. I just kind of oppose further political division over misinformation and missing context or framing. That's from Pink Peep. It's a great comment. It's like we're having a conversation here. I love that. So that is a great comment, and I think I agree with you on all of that, right? I think, you know, it is fun to sort of take these headlines and just go, oh my God, that's insane. Are you kidding me? But, you know, yeah, there's always two sides to the story, and all of this is going to continue to be framed out. That being said, I think that there's enough here that it's worth a very serious inquiry and some actions, because you don't want this to happen, right? If you're a Democrat and you're watching this and you're going, oh, you know, well, Trump's a lunatic. Okay, well, that was Milley's personal opinion. That's your personal opinion. The reason we don't run a country based on personal opinions is because that's a pretty terrible way to do things. So what we do is we have rules and constitutions. And I don't care if Joe Biden goes into dementia psycho mode. I still don't want his Joint Chiefs of Staff doing whatever the hell he wants. Okay, you can make the same argument with Dementia Joe and say, hey, maybe we should just have people doing other things. Okay. You might even, if you're a conservative or Republican or libertarian, make some good justifications for that because the guy doesn't know where he is half the time. But the point is, that's not appropriate. We live in a constitutional republic and we got to follow it. You can't just do whatever the hell you want, whenever the hell you want. All right. The Real Villain says, whole thing's super weird. Jennifer Griffen is competent, but I want to believe it. I know what you mean. It's a fun story. We have another one from Three Girlies says, so do you think it would change if he did this to Joe Biden? I think there would be nobody backing him if he did this to Biden. Yeah, I mean, I just made that point, right? It's not like he's in a different position now to do the same thing to Biden. What stops him from going behind Biden's back? Or what stops him from trying to not use the nuclear football? Oh no, my Chrome just crashed again. Can you believe that? Got to open up all these screens again. Let's get the questions back open. You know, I don't know why it does that, but it does that from time to time. All right, so let's see. I think we got it still queued up here. Yeah, that's from Three Girlies. We've got over here, it says, what stops him from trying to not use the nuclear football? Because Biden is a dementia-ridden, corrupt, tyrannical old gas bag. Still needs to be court-martialed and put out to pasture. That is from Three Girlies. Good to see you, Three Girlies. Let's make sure we can get all this stuff back open over here. I've got Rumble in the house. They're on over there. Shout outs to Star, Southern Bix, chatting away. We're pulling up YouTube again. Get this back open over here. I see Locals. It says Farmer's Daughter I see over there. NY Renal MD. It says I need a new computer. This is a beefy computer. I don't know what's going on over here, but we're back in business. And that is Three Girlies. Thanks for that. We have another one from former LEO says, hey, remember when the Democrats wanted a plan for removing POTUS, Trump from White House? I wonder if they would share the plan to evict Biden from the White House. That's from former LEO. It's going to be a whole different set of standards, as is usually the case. Joy Behar says, Milley is a patriot. Thank you for protecting us from the big bad orange man and his insurrectionists. Well, you're welcome, Joy. I guess that's from Milley. I'm Not Gas says, Rob, your voice is sounding rough. Did you catch the coof? I didn't. I actually went and I thought I did because this is pretty bad. I usually don't get this sick, but I went and got a test and they said, no, you don't have it. And I said, well, that's weird. Well, then what the heck is this thing? Because it's annoying me. I've got work to do. I've got a show to do here, man. We've got stuff to get to, but I did not catch COVID. I got tested and everything, and they said no. We have another one. Says, Ghost Gunner, I think it's because you're on a Windows computer. That's obviously not accurate, Ghost Gunner. You know, because what's my alternative? Apple? Give me a break. We're adults on this show. We're adults here. Chrome browser says, try the Brave browser instead. Oh, no. We have some more. Former LEO says, go watch the movie 7 Days in May. Never even heard of that one. Former LEO. I'll have to take a look at it. We have Monster One says, get a better browser, just not Apple. It's Chrome. This is now a Chrome show. This is now a browser show. Radicy says, I don't know where this belongs. Hospital lose money on L&D, but it encourages people to come back to the hospital for other money-making treatments. The hospital can hire travelers. They're too expensive. I think that hospital is just whining. Maybe. I'm not so sure. You know, I don't know. I really don't know. We'll see. And we'll see if the people who are really sort of, objecting are going to stand by that. I think that they are. I think that they will. We have some super chats that came in from Tager What's Iffy says, if General Milley was wrong, who can do the firing? If we are counting on Biden, don't hold your breath. Can Congress do it? I think they could probably impeach him, right? Because he's part of the president's, he's part of the executive branch. And so they could go and impeach him, but they control Congress at the moment. So I'm not sure that they will. Joe Biden has given Milley his backing and we'll see, but it's a good question. Rock N says Afghanistan was a gift to China for helping Dementia Joe. A lot of resources there. Saw a headline that there was $1 trillion in minerals over there and China's just walking right in. So that's fun. Another one from Rock N says, we are a banana republic, military, intel, big tech running the country. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think that the alternative would be that the people are running things, that we have competent leaders actually doing things that are in the interest of the American people. I haven't seen that in a long time. In fact, the American people are sort of getting the short end of the stick everywhere we turn. Bianca says, Robert, you need to drink some garlic tea. Take some raw garlic, boil it for a few minutes, sip it slowly, put some honey and lime in there if you want. It really helps. I'm going to need to do something because you can hear this thing. And it's just lingering. It won't leave. Lava Java, super chatted $4. No questions. Thank you, Lava. Very, very nice and generous. 2 more came in from locals. We'll get this before we jump into the next segment. It says, those COVID tests are inaccurate sometimes. Crowder was sick, tested negative, but his wife was positive. So who knows? Who knows? I have no idea. All right, well, Leafy Bug says, Rob can't be an Apple user because he doesn't write in crayon. That's right. I'm an adult man. I'm an adult person. So I don't use those things. All right, so those are great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and over on YouTube. We've got 3 live chats going on right now. Locals, YouTube, and Rumble. Shout outs to everybody across the board. All right. And so we've got another segment we're going to jump into. Let's do a quick cough break on this one. All right. We're talking about the border. And forewarning, there's going to be a Kamala Harris clip in here. It's not a cackle, but she's coming up. So just, get your earmuffs out or do what you need to do. The border crisis continues. Unless you're in the Biden administration, then it's not a crisis at all. But according to Fox News, we've got 200,000 new migrant encounters in August. We've been following the numbers ever since Biden took over, and we've been trying to see if there's going to be a reduction. Because remember, early on in the Biden administration, he said that Kamala Harris was so wise and intelligent that she was going to be able to go out there and solve this thing. Nobody's been able to solve it for the last 30 years, but she is going to fix it. And so she obviously didn't like that idea because she doesn't want to fix it. She likes a big, open, porous border. Doesn't matter to her one bit. But she had to go sort of play the game like, I care about it. And so she went down, I think, to Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, down in South America and Central America, and told them what her plan was. She said very simply, don't come to the border. Well, looks like they didn't listen. They're here. 208,000 migrant encounters in August. That's 317% increase over the last year. Okay. 2020, when Donald Trump was in office, we had a much smaller number. Now it's 317% up. There were more than 200,000 encounters. The source told Fox News that it marks the first decrease seen under Biden. It's only a 2% drop over the last one in July. So that's good. It's going down. In July, it was 212,000. In August, 208,000. That's good. So 4,000 or so less people came across. So I guess if we keep that trajectory going, we'll get to zero in about 75 years. So that's good. We have more numbers. This is a 317% increase over August 2020, 50,000 in 2020 under Trump. But we have now 208,000 under Biden. August, 49% of those apprehensions were single adults. So half the people coming over are single. 44% of them were expelled under public health protections put in place under the Trump administration and extended by the Biden administration. So we have 208,000, about half of those are expelled. So we've got 100,000 people now who are in the country. Biden admin has been expelling single adults and some migrant families under the order because it was implemented due to COVID-19, but not been expelling unaccompanied minor children or migrant families with young children. Biden is facing criticism for the handling of the border crisis. It narrowed interior immigration, customs, and enforcement priorities, pushed hard for legalization, also has been releasing migrants into the interior, processing them to sponsors already in the country, angering Republican governors and other lawmakers. So this has been going on for a long time now. Here is the Kamala clip. This is how she was going to solve this problem. Get ready. Remember this?
At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur.
Okay,
But
good.
we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration.
Okay.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
I believe, you believe? Well, you believe wrong. There is a new post over from Breitbart, says that 3,000 migrants are now being forced to camp under a border bridge in Texas. Source within CBP provided them video of a makeshift camp erected under a local international bridge. The source from the CBP is not authorized to speak, but says the number of detainees continues to rise, is going to reach at least 3,000 here very soon. We have the video. The video shows the international bridge that sits on the United States side of the border. So people are coming across the river, landing on the U.S. soil, and then camping out under this bridge, providing shelter for mostly Haitian migrants. Water tanks, portable outdoor toilets are placed as hundreds of migrants arrive on a daily basis. So what are they doing to discourage them? I don't know, but they're coming in droves. The situation developing for the Border Patrol continues to worsen by the hour. On Monday, the number of migrants under the bridge was 2,000. Now, today, it's 3,000, 2 days later. According to the source, Border Patrol does not have available indoor detention space to accommodate hundreds of people arriving daily. The agency attempts to free space through transfers to other facilities or releases to nonprofit shelters. Either option requires buses and drivers, which are in short supply. So we've got 3,000 migrants now in a situation that looks like this. So this is the bridge where they are under Del Rio, Texas. We're going to dive into this a little bit further. No sound on this, but you can see what's happening. It's very hot. It's July. It's September, not July. It's cooling down, but they came across in July. Numbers are still about the same. Over from Breitbart. And so that was not a particularly good scene. Now we're going to dig into that because we've got some more footage. But this is a rapidly deteriorating situation. And it's not, as we heard, it's not just the single adults. Half the people coming across, yes, they're single adults, but there's also children. And the Border Patrol found 2 of them in bushes, abandoned on the Rio Grande riverbank. Border Patrol agents find 2 children with a note left behind. 2-year-old girl, 3-month-old boy, both nationals of Honduras, were siblings. They were on the riverbank of the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass, Texas, 100 miles north of Laredo. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol said that they were found about noon by agents who were in a boat. They said the children were spotted after noticing an unusual color on the riverbank. Quote, agents quickly responded and safely retrieved both children. A note under the infant safety carrier revealed the 2-year-old girl and 3-month-old boy, both nationals, were siblings. Authorities searched the area, didn't find any adults or anyone else nearby. Children, they're okay, transported to a Uvalde station for processing. And so, we've talked about this on the show. We've looked at images of people being stacked up like cattle in the back of, U-Hauls and things, and watching them being dragged across the border. We've talked about people being killed, raped on the trek over. And the reason for the traveling was the incentivization introduced by the Biden administration. No longer have to wait in Mexico. You can now come into the U.S. and you will be processed. This is what that looks like. This is what that policy change looks like. This is the Biden administration in action. Kids in bushes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was very mad at Donald Trump for putting kids in cages. She went there in her white little outfit and hung off the chain link fence, crying her eyes out. Oh, I'm so sad. It's catastrophically worse, 4 times worse than it was last year. Where is she? Where are the Democrats? They're not anywhere. These kids are sitting in bushes, a 3-month-old and a 2-year-old. Little girl, little boy, just dropped off in the bushes. Okay, we'll just let that sit there for a minute. Just so we can take a look at those little kids just being dropped off. Somebody else will pick them up. Insane. So they're not doing much about this. Bill Mellugin over from Fox LA says our drone is currently over the international bridge in Del Rio, where Border Patrol law enforcement sources tell us over now 4,200 migrants. Remember when like 2 slides ago, it was 3,000. Now it's 4,200. Migrants are waiting to be apprehended after crossing into the U.S. Local Border Patrol holding facilities are overwhelmed. They're over capacity. You can see what it looks like. We've got trucks going that way. We're going to zoom in on this picture here a little bit, but a lot of people are over there. This is the area that we're talking about. So, of course, this is Mexico down here, and we have the United States up this area. We've got the international bridge, which is sort of right here, kind of right in the middle of the border between the Gulf of Mexico and El Paso, which then kind of goes into New Mexico. And so we're going to zoom in what's going on here. You can see on this side of the river, the north side of the Rio Grande is Texas. So this is the great state of Texas over here. And if you're from California, don't even think about going here. Did you hear me? Don't even think about it. If you voted for Newsom, you can stay there. The Reds, the Republicans, you're free. Come on, go to Texas, come to Arizona. Come on over. Otherwise, you got to just stay there. So we have in Texas, you can see that side of the aisle. On the south side of the Rio Grande, we've got Mexico. And you'll notice this international bridge is right here. So people are crossing the border. And if you follow the road, you'll notice that there's not much on the U.S. side of the border until you get to the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, which is right here. And so most of this area is sort of available, right? It's open land. And this is what it looks like. So you can see the bridge. This is the river. This is the Rio Grande River, this direction. And on the U.S. side of the border, this is from Bill's drone that was flying around. And you can see just the 4,200 people, I guess, is what you're looking at. You can see that they're basically setting up camps. If you notice down here, I was looking closely, they've set up clotheslines. They've got a clothesline running across from this tree over to this pillar on the bridge. They're doing laundry, hanging clothes. They've got, blankets. And some of these people are social distancing, like that person's social distancing right there. That's nice. This group is in the group, they're not distancing, but as a group, they are distancing from everybody else. But these people over here, all under the bridge, yeah, there's not much social distancing. Hard to tell. Don't know if I see any masks on over there. But they're all just landing on the U.S. side. And I don't know why, because Kamala told them, don't come. And they're still coming. In fact, they're coming by about 500 people a day. And they don't know what to do with them. Here's another scene from Bill over from Fox. It says a source on the ground sent us video showing thousands of migrants under international bridge, with more showing up constantly. Situation getting worse every day. Numbers are growing literally by the hour. Here's that video. It's really heartbreaking. I feel terrible for them. They're people who want to improve their lives, and they were incentivized by this administration to come and improve it all throughout the campaign. And they changed their policies to create some pretty strong incentives to do exactly this. to do exactly what you saw. You can come into the U.S. and we'll let you camp out here, and then we'll process you. It's the exact reversal of what Donald Trump said. You're not allowed to cross that border and set up shop here. If you want to wait, you got to remain in Mexico. Biden eliminated that, created a very perverse incentive that's causing people now to do this, causing people, as I've been screaming about for months, to pick up their kids, drag them thousands of miles to the border for a shot at a better future. And if they can't, one family apparently don't even care about their kids, just throwing them in bushes. But you saw other kids, you saw, children, people who are just living in squalor and horrendous conditions. Who knows what happens to them, but not good. Now, what is the Department of Homeland Security doing? Is anybody in the Biden administration doing anything about this? Not really. And in fact, DHS is looking like it's losing some staff. We have Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. His name is Alejandro Mayorkas. His chief of staff just resigned amid border crisis problems. Her name was Oleg. Her departure comes amid a surge of illegal immigration at the U.S. border. Top official announced on Monday she's leaving the department at the end of the month. Her name is Karen Oleg. She's the chief of staff to Alejandro Mayorkas, the same guy that's been down to the border and recognized it's a problem. She decided to resign her position to pursue new opportunities, whatever that means. That's according to Mayorkas. Says, we are grateful to Karen for her service during the critical first 9 months of the new administration. In a separate email, Oleg praised her soon-to-be former colleagues, writing, though too often underappreciated by our fellow citizens, I'm continually struck by how many millions of Americans sleep in safety every night because of what DHS does. Who is going to be taking over? This woman here, Jennifer Higgins, Associate Director of Refugee Asylum International Operations. She's going to step in until a new replacement can be found. But, the big question is, where is Kamala? Why isn't she down there fixing this? She's the new border czar, appointed dutifully by Joe Biden. Nowhere to be found. Gone with the wind. Let's take a look at the questions over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. See if you have anything to say about any of this. We have some questions coming in here. From former LEO, says 7 days in May is about the military takeover of the USA. Oh, that sounds terrible. But worth a watch, certainly. Mama Rock says Mucinex and tons of water. My kids' schools have tons of kids out. No COVID, just crud. I have Mucinex, Dayquil, and NyQuil. I kind of had a nice little kind of a concoction of Dayquil and caffeine before we started the show today, but it's not helping all that much. But we're going to keep pushing through. It'll go away. Mustang Jeff says, didn't a federal judge order the Biden administration to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy? How can they allow 100,000 people to stay in the States? I don't know. Is that accurate? I'm not sure. Now that you mention it, I kind of remember seeing a headline about that, but I didn't follow up on that. But it doesn't matter anyways, because Joe Biden doesn't care what the courts say. He just does whatever he wants to do. The courts can be damned about it, unless the Supreme Court has to say something. Monster One says, Kamala said she's working with corporations to send more of our jobs to the South and Central America to address the issue. Oh, that's great. Yeah, isn't it great when our elected officials care about the job security of foreigners over Americans? Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, they want to build up some of the infrastructure down in these foreign countries while threatening 80 million Americans with their jobs unless they go get a medical shot. Not really in America's favor, I don't think. We have NY Renal MD says Dems love taxing. How about we open the border? Honestly, how much worse can it get? Put a $100,000 a head per crossing. That's about $2.4 billion per year. Could buy a lot of vaccines we won't use. Sarcasm. It's from the good doctor. I mean, it kind of feels like it's mostly, that's not true, right? 49% of them were turned back this time. So they'll just go down to the next junction and come back, or grab a kid and come back. Horrible. That one Florida man says, maybe a new variant made it across the border. You are U.S. citizen patient 1. That's an honor. We'll call it the Gruler variant. The Gruler variant. It's It doesn't kill you, but it just makes you sound like crap. And he says, just so you know, the over-under on the duration of tonight's show is 1.5 hours. I think I might take the under, get better soon. You might be right. It's gonna be close because our next segment is not super long because I was sort of expecting my voice to give out. So it's a good take. You split it right at the middle. An hour 30 is probably pretty good. Yeah, Edon Tess says, did you see the reports where the border wall materials are being dismantled, cut up, and sold off? You should check out this clip from the BCP report showing construction machines breaking things down. Starts at 9:13. Probably can't show it now, but take a look. Such a waste of time, materials, and money. Well, let me see if we can pull this open real quick. It's on YouTube. So we've got a good clip. 9:13 is what he said. Okay, so let's see. Oh, it's another guy's show.
This is
yeah, so here he's saying, yeah, so this is his show. Let's see what he's saying.
federally contracted workers breaking up materials from their border wall for disposal and to sell for scrap. Stacks of unused materials line the border wall, just waiting to be cut up or hauled out. What a waste. How about, I don't know, Julian Conradson says, build a wall with it? Folks, he's literally destroying the wall.
Wow. All right. Well, there you go. And that looks like a nice channel, the BCP report. I just gave them a sub. That sounds like a nice channel. Doing some good heavy lifting over there. Mama Rock says AOC is at the Met. She's at the Met. That's why she's not at the border. I was like, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, that's right. She's not at the border because she's taxing the rich. Oh, I forgot about that, Mama Rocks. You're right. She's busy playing, patty cake with millionaires and billionaires. Vienticus Prime says, why don't these people cross at California? They just had a recall election that was fortified with vitamin D. That's how you know it was an extra healthy election. From Vienticus Prime. Yeah, over in California, that was an interesting one. Kamala Harris says, how do I say don't come in Spanish? No viene? Something like that? Is that right? No, that's not right. D. Rodriguez says, Rob, if Kamala told you to do or not to do something, would you listen? She has zero rapport and respect with anyone from any side of the political aisle. I think she has been enjoying the pool at the VP house for too long. No, I certainly would not. Definitely not. I don't appreciate it when our elected officials talk down to us, when they sort of scold you, when Joe Biden comes out and says, our patience is wearing thin. I think, who are you, buddy boy? You're not my father. You're not my employer. You are governing with the consent of the governed. I don't care if you're impatient with us or whatever. That's your own problem. We don't get to just shred the Constitution because you have an agenda. That's not how that works. Kamala's the same thing. Very condescending. How dare she go down to Guatemala and wag her finger in their faces? If I was in Guatemala, I'd be like, what? Get out of my country. Don't tell us what to do. All right. We have Jay He says, the hypocrisy of the left is disgusting. Breaks my heart seeing what happened to those children. Yeah, it is, right? And their arguments are made in the name of humanity. That Trump is a racist and that his policies are racist. And then they change the policies and you've got kids just being abandoned in bushes. Nice. Good job. Way to improve the world. We have the last villain says, last people caught. I'm sure the Underground Railroad is just using a better route. Actually, numbers will never be known. New slave class. Yeah. Me and my sister got something similar to COVID about a month ago. Lasted like 2 weeks for her. Less for me. Both tested negative. Something else out of Wuhan, maybe. Apple is for the cult. Google is slightly better. BlackBerry needs to get it together. That's from the last villain. I like that. Well, that's good to know. So hopefully I'm in the tail end of this thing. All right, we've got another one from Monster One says, has anyone informed these people that the U.S. is horrible and a white supremacist nation? Maybe Kamala should have told them that. It's all a bunch of white males, and we have a terrible patriarchy there. And it's all a bunch of rich people, too, that escape their taxes. Maybe they wouldn't come. Jeremy says, Rob, I think you were onto something with your comment about Californians. That picture is possibly showing thousands of Californians that have fled the state via Mexico to try to get into Texas. But the Texas don't want them there because they voted for Gruesome and then failed to recall him. In all seriousness, the Democrats have become the biggest problem for the people of the U.S. Americans don't want them running our country into the ground, but the Dems keep forcing their way into power. Good comment there from Jeremy Matrita. Thanks, Jeremy. Let's see what else we have. A few more here. We've got, I'm Not Gas says, I understand the left is incentivized to import voters with illegal immigration and some right-wing donors like the cheap farm labor. But for the right, they've got to realize they will never win an election again when they are shifting demographics like this. We need the wall. We need to deport illegal immigrants, full stop. A country without borders and laws is not a country. Yeah, and so I think it's a very important point. Demographics are shifting. And your country is changing. Our country is changing right in front of our eyes. So when you have a conversation about what a nation looks like, would be nice to define that. Do we want open borders, yes or no? If the answer is yes, then let's just make that a policy. If Kamala and Biden want wide open borders, then why don't they just do that? So that we don't have these situations where we've got kids being left in bushes. It's not good. Hunter Biden is here, says, I can't read that comment. Hunter's, talking about El Salvador when he was down there. 12-year-olds, just horrific. Vientica says, look, the reality of all this is that it has nothing to do with Trump or Biden. Most people still don't realize what the Monroe Doctrine is. Our empire still operates under it. It's the notion that the entire Western Hemisphere should be under control of the U.S. So to you listeners, I say think about that when you hear about these brutal dictatorships in Latin America. Think about how, and not that I like to use these idiotic terms, socialism is so inherently a bad, self-destructive failure that it has to be propped up through U.S. trade embargoes. If you realize how stupid that last sentence sounds, you might start realizing that these are the actions that are taken. For these people who are affected by all this, consider this. They could stay there or resist. Or they could get up and leave the big libtard-controlled cities and move to a red state. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Yeah, I mean, as long as they move to a red state and they don't bring with them all of their garbage policies that wreck their state that caused them to leave in the first place. Vientica says, since someone brought up the border wall, there was a report a while back on the Real News Network that the border wall has cameras in it. These cameras apparently are high res, able to look into people's homes, were operated by an Israeli contractor. Oh, that's nice. Perfect. That's great. We have another one from Edon Tess says, by the way, on that same BCP report, there was a report of the Declaration of Independence on a website now labeled with a trigger warning, and that it contained antiquated language and ideas and possible violent language. We are in serious trouble, Rob. Get us sorted. We're working on it, Edon Tess. We're in it together, my friend. I'm glad you're here. Dallas Photography, a.k.a. Miss Danny, says, there is a new law signed regarding the policies between Guatemala and the U.S. Now they are assuring a safe return to Guatemala. But what it's not said is that the problem is not only with Guatemala. Those are the countries touched to get up there. A very sad situation indeed. That's from Miss Danny, a.k.a. Dallas Photography. Go give her some love. Over on YouTube, we've got several people chiming in. VP is here, says, Robert, a false negative does not rule out COVID. I just lost my sister to COVID. Her husband had it, but tested negative. Take horse meds, please. That's my next step. I was actually going to go, I was going to contact Beth Coddington. She's a farmer's daughter, obviously. And I think she's got the goods on some ivermectin horse suppositories. So I'm going to go get a couple of those and cram them right up the sphincter shaft and see if that cures it. And then maybe Anderson Cooper can run a segment about that. All right, we've got some other questions. That was the last one from locals. LAFD Rafter says, thoughts on the notice to hospitals, medicenters, clinics, insurance companies, pharmas denying meds for treatment with the script for knowingly effective treatment. No accurate warnings regarding the vax and breach of the Hippocratic Oath. LAFD Rafter, I was reading back through the OSHA requirements. There's some very interesting things happening now. The OSHA requirements, we went through the congressional research document about, that was detailing what the ETFs were, the emergency fund, the emergency authorization things that they were going to use to pass Joe Biden's new vaccine mandate. And recall, when we read through that story, they told us specifically that they were no longer asking about vaccine adverse related events in the workplace. They wanted to know about COVID, all COVID reports, but if somebody went and got the vaccine as pursuant to a workplace mandate and they had an adverse event, they didn't want you to report it. Why is that? I don't know. Good question, LAFD. Chris Wolney says, 7 days in May, JFK foresaw it. He helped with the film. Ooh. 7 days in May. I've never heard of it. I'm going to have to go take a look at that. Thank you, Chris Wolney. We have Super Iron Bob says, BlackBerry gave unlock keys to law enforcement, and all you had to do is call a PD and pose as another department to get them. They're no heroes. Are they even around anymore? BlackBerry, are they? I'm not sure. I think Apple now is, they were going to interface with the government to scan your photographs, and there was enough backlash there that they decided not to do that, which is a good thing. All right, let's see what else okay. And so that was it over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Love the super chats. We're giving shout outs over on Rumble. We've got Tepid Annihilator, Southern Bix, Star 3214. They're over there chatting away. On YouTube, we've got Grandma G, Lynn Job, A Straight Narrow, Jenny B, K Bean, Squeezer. Over on Locals, we've got JM Shanahan, we've got Vienticus Prime, Jeremy Matrita, and many others chatting away. Thank you so much for your love on that segment. All right, we've got one more segment left because that's about all the time my voice has. And we're talking about these vaccine mandates, which is a hot and spicy topic indeed. A federal judge just announced that they were going to be blocking a mandate for medical worker vaccines in New York State. This story comes over from the AP. Federal judge temporarily blocked the state of New York on Tuesday from forcing medical workers to be vaccinated. A group of healthcare workers sued, saying their constitutional rights were violated because the state's mandate disallowed religious exemptions. And we're going to take a look at this. Judge David Hurd in Utica issued the order. We have 17 health professionals filed a pseudonymous lawsuit. The judge gave New York State until September 22nd to respond. We have the press secretary from the new New York governor. He said that New York Governor Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, she said, Governor Hochul is doing everything in her power to protect New Yorkers and combat the Delta variant by increasing vaccine rates across the state. Requiring healthcare workers to do this is critical to the battle. And so she is referencing this order that was signed in by Governor Cuomo, creepy creepshow Cuomo, before he resigned on August 16th. The Department of Health issues Section 16 orders to hospitals requiring policy to ensure all employees are vaccinated. First dose coming up, required September 27th. Governor Cuomo recently announced today that all healthcare workers, including staff at hospitals and long-term care facilities, including nursing homes, blah, 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 all got to get the vax by September 27th. Mandating, saying to date, 75% of the state's hospital workers, 74% of adult care facility workers, and 68% of the state's workers have completed their vaccine. So that's a lot of people that have not. Anywhere between 32 and 25% have not gotten the vax. They have to now. Otherwise, they're theoretically going to lose their license, lose their job. The State Department of Health will no longer allow them to continue to perform their duties. So Judge Hurd is this guy. He's over from the Northern District of New York. He was appointed by Bill Clinton back in 1999, so he's been around for a while. And before that, he was a judge in the district court in New York. He earned his BS Cornell University. Let's see. Anything else interesting here? Not really. Did a bunch of background law work. I mean, gosh, good Lord. This guy has been in the law forever, from 1963 until 1966. Associate all over the place. So, all right, he's been around for a long time. Here's the order that he drafted. You can see I mentioned it was a sort of a pseudonymous lawsuit. Only 5 pages. We'll run through it quickly. But we have the doctors and the nurses who are all sort of refusing to identify themselves, right? They're going to be a lot of backlash here. We know that Joy Reid on MSNBC is going to have a mental breakdown if she knows what their names are. Oh, you're better than this. They're suing a lot of familiar names: Kathy Hochul, Dr. Zucker, and of course, Letitia James, the Attorney General. You remember Letitia James? She was the woman who ran against Trump, and she has those facial spasms where she says that Trump is an illegitimate president. Remember, and she's going to do everything she can to remove the illegitimate president. Remember that? Talked a lot about her. Kind of an interesting gal, and she's being sued. So the order came out from the court, said on August 26, New York State Department of Health issued a regulation, requires personnel at general hospitals and nursing homes to receive their first dose of the COVID vaccine by September 27th. Unlike a previous health order, this new regulation excludes any religious exemption. See that here? This is the crux of this entire order. No religious exemption. The named plaintiffs are 17 medical professionals. They say they have sincere religious beliefs that compel them to refuse the COVID-19 vaccine. And the law has no escape hatch. So that it might be a violation of the First Amendment, because in the United States, we have still, allegedly, the First Amendment that protects those things, like free speech and like the free exercise of religion. So back when the plaintiffs, these doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals, they filed their lawsuit on September 13th, and they said that this vaccination mandate violates it. The First Amendment and the 14th Amendment, the Supremacy Clause, the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. And they're proceeding pseudo-anonymously. Plaintiffs moves for a temporary restraining order. They want a preliminary injunction. They want to stop the government from enforcing the mandate to the extent that it categorically requires healthcare employers to deny or revoke religious exemptions from COVID-19 vaccine mandates. And we basically made a list of all of those claims, right? Talked about, in particular, equal protection and how different groups of people are going to be treated differently just on the basis of this new government law. And when the government imposes a new law that burdens people's constitutional rights, you have a remedy. You can sue the government for that. And the government has to justify why the law exists in the first place. And so this lawsuit was being filed, and this is going against the state of New York because they have their policies in place. They have their rules in line. Cuomo came out, issued some orders, said you got to get it done by September 27th. So they now have something in which they can sink their teeth into and file this claim that their rights are being deprived. That is not available quite yet on the federal level because the Biden administration is still rolling through the rulemaking requirements that OSHA is actually imposing. So once those rules are promulgated, we're going to see an entirely massive slew of these types of claims. So what is this type of claim in particular? Section 1983. If you're somebody who hangs around the law, you probably heard that number a lot. They call them Section 1983 claims. These are civil lawsuits. They're actions for a deprivation of rights. You're going to see a lot of these coming up. Every person who, under the color of any statute, ordinance, anything, is subjected within the jurisdiction of the United States to any deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities shall be liable to the party injured in an action at the law. What this is essentially saying is, if the government is violating your constitutional rights, you can file a claim against them. That's exactly what happened with these doctors. Now, the order continues. It says, upon a review of plaintiff's memo, it is hereby ordered that the motion for a temporary restraining order is granted. So this is not going to go into effect on September 27th. Defendants, meaning the government, and all other persons in active concert or participation with them are enjoined from enforcing, threatening to enforce, attempting to enforce, or otherwise requiring compliance with the vaccine mandate. The vaccine mandate, the judge says, is suspended in operation. The Department of Health is barred from enforcing any requirement that employers deny religious exemptions or that they revoke any exemptions employers already granted before the mandate was issued. They're also barred from interfering in any way with the granting of religious exemptions. They're barred from taking any action, disciplinary or otherwise, against the licensure, certification, residency, admitting privileges, or other professional status, or any other qualification, or having obtained a religious exemption from COVID. Wow. So that's sort of saying that if they ask for that religious exemption and they get penalized as a result of that, that's a problem. The court is specifically saying you cannot do that. Judge notes also, since August 26th, the regulation does not require hospital and nursing home to receive a vaccine until September 27th. The temporary restraining order does not, as a practical matter, go into effect until that date. So it'll go in simultaneously. Plaintiffs now shall serve the defendants with this order, which they're happy to do. The operative complaint and all the documents. Defendants, now the government, they have an opportunity to oppose the request for this injunction, and they also have an opportunity to contest the pseudo-anonymous filing. So we're going to see if the government wants to sort of unveil all of the names of the people, which they probably will want to do so that they can get abused in public. If defendants, yes, so we got another hearing on September 28th, the day that the order is supposed to go into effect, signed off on by U.S. District Judge Hurd. And so, some people are doing cartwheels and celebrating this thing, which I think it is a good thing to celebrate, right? It's not going to go into effect immediately. The First Amendment, this judge is still recognizing, you still have the freedom of religion in this country, exercise of that. And so if they are not allowing people to enjoy that constitutional right, that's a problem. We have a federal judge who's stepping in and laying some pretty good precedent for the idea that we still have a Bill of Rights, which is a very good thing. So well done, Judge Hurd. Now this could, flip at any moment, who knows, but we'll see where it goes. It's a good first step. Let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I need a few questions here so that we can beat the odds on the show. The Last Villain says, Anderson would love that story. Right up his alley. I think that's on the ivermectin horse suppositories. Yeah. Joseph Stalin says, this is tyranny against tyranny. Unacceptable. Joseph Stalin's in the house. Let's see what else we've got. We're running out of time, folks. We've got Kareem165 says, just voted PPC earlier this week. The same party your friend Viva is running for. Awesome. The only party against the Vax Pass up north. Let's give this party more momentum, though this way they will no longer be unable to undemocratically remove them from the leaders' debate. Yeah, I've been meaning to reach out to Viva. I've got to connect with Allison Morrow. I've got to connect with Good Logic over there. Eric Hunley wants to connect. And I'm sick. It's like killing me. There's so much to talk about and so many people to connect with. And I really want to support Viva because he's running. And as soon as I'm able to have him on the show, I'm going to reach out to him and see if we can promote that. But yeah, he's doing a great job. I see him running all over the place, doing these interviews and things. The PPC, is getting totally shafted up there in Canada. And it's, not a surprise because the same thing happens in the States. If you contest the mainstream narrative, then you are persona non grata. And that is a huge problem in this country. We have Your Guardian Angel says, licorice tea, lots of it. Soothes the throat, and it's a natural cure. So I think that I'm going to go and get some more. I need that. I need garlic tea. I need ivermectin horse suppositories. It's going to be a wild show tomorrow. Let me just tell you that. It's going to be crazy. We're going to be on all sorts, hopped up on everything. We've got Monster One says, yeah, another court order that the Democrats will ignore. Yeah, which is a great point. And that was, hold on. Let's see. We've got Monster One. No, that was Monster One. Thank you, Monster. Another, whoa, my goodness. Very long comment from Vientikes says, sorry if this hurts your voice, Rob. It's going to. Yeah, this is going to be a painful one, but we're going to get through it. But I had some deep 1960s pot-smoking hippie thoughts people might be interested in. Figure your law brain would have fun with these. Here's a fun analysis about these mandates. The Theseus paradox. For those not aware of what it is, there's a Greek ship called Theseus. You replace each part of the ship one at a time. With every part you replace, you build a ship. Now you have two ships. Which one is the Theseus? What makes one the Theseus and the other one not? How much of the sum of which parts culminate the Theseus? I was thinking about this because taking a medical treatment is a change to the human body. So how much of a change to the human body is allowed before a person ceases to be the one person in the eyes of the Constitution and is another? What about brain chips? Can we be ordered to get them? They exist. What about cybernetic arms? Can they be forced upon us too? I was thinking about the 13th Amendment through the Theseus lens, the one that people think eliminated slavery but actually codified it. So how many forced actions do there need to be before it's considered slavery? Can we subdivide slavery into things like medical slavery? Also, people bring up the normal vaccines that people get and requirements for the schools that already exist. Perhaps this is just a good opportunity to revisit all those ideas now that we have a new lens to examine them with. That's from Vianticus Prime. That is a very interesting comment. It sort of, as I was reading that, it reminds me of the body, right? The idea being that whatever the wives' tale is, that every 12 years you get you get every single cell in your body has been replaced. So are you really the same person, physically? Interesting stuff. And a good conversation there, Vianticus, a lot there. And you did us a solid because we're over the hour and a half. If you took the over, you won. How about that? Let's see. We've got Jeremy Matrita says, every year the military is required to get the flu vaccines for the current set of common flu variants. Why would the government try to mandate people get the shot for last year's virus? The new ones aren't available yet. Seriously. I don't know, Jeremy. Why does the government do anything that it does? We have another one. D. Rodriguez says, Rob, I do ginger lemon honey tea and add a tablespoon of Bacardi rum, dark sleep for 12 hours. You'll be fine. I wish I could, D. Rodriguez. That sounds really good. But the Bacardi's not going to do it for me, but I'm going to go with the lemon honey tea, ginger tea. We've got licorice tea. We've got horse suppositories. It's going to be wild. We've got a couple super chats came in. Beth Coddington's here, says, you got it. I'll have the pository gun loaded up and ready to go. Perfect. It's going to be awful. We have Still Sleeping says, the Lee scandal and the treasonous acts are just a cover-up for Fauci's lies. Ooh, very interesting there. That's from Still Sleeping. We've got Chris Wolney says, when you going to work with Viva and Barnes on schedules? That's a good question. I don't know. Because we broadcast at the same time. There are competition on Wednesdays. Do you know that? Our Wednesday numbers are never that good because everybody's over there watching it. That's all right. YouTube's big enough for both of us, I guess. But yeah, we are going to have to connect. I don't even know when that PPC election is. I want to make sure I squeeze it in before he actually runs, before the election happens. We've got David Smith with another super chat for $2. No question. Thank you there, David. Lean is over on YouTube, says, Rob, please stop. You're dying. I can hear it. You're dying. You're actually dying. But I think I'll be all right. I hope so. Those were great questions over from... Oh, we got some more on locals. Let's wrap these up. We're going to make sure this over goes over. NY Renal Imposter. I don't know what that one is. And I can't say that. Whatever that comment is, I can't say it. It's medical advice. We have Pato says, Washington State had a similar mandate, except they allow religious exemptions as long as it doesn't create an undue hardship for the employer. So exemptions are being denied by employers on that basis. So for a year and a half, being unvaxxed was okay, but now it's an undue hardship. Yeah, very interesting. So that sounds like it is a burden on that liberty, right? It's a burden on your religious liberty. So it's a clever way to get around it, but I don't think that's going to stand up in court. Doesn't pass muster. We have Sweet Potato says, watching this closely, not as much as in my neck of the woods, wondering if they can send some lawyers over here. The Washington State Patrol has rejected every single religious accommodation request it has reviewed so far by employees hoping to get out of the vaccine mandate. WSP says there are no practical accommodations. About your cold, Lomadium Indian parsley has antiviral effects and is natural. I think I'm kind of over like the thick of it, but it's just like lingering. It's just like all the remnants of it. But okay, I'm going to add that to my list, and it's going to be a wild scene tomorrow. Be like the Joe Rogan concoction. We have See the Veil says, Rob, glad to see you are here. Keep the healthy teas in stock. Sad that the only people able to sue are people with financial connections. When anyone who doesn't have the funds or the connections tries to sue, they usually don't get the same representation against the government or the company who violate their rights. Many never get their day in court. Others, it takes many years. There are HIPAA rights that have been violated here. It's not being discussed. The FDA does not have the authority to usurp HIPAA, and neither does the CDC, but they both have. How can the ones who get the funds get the same representation in court? It's a great question, See the Veil. If you could solve that, you'd solve a lot of problems in this country. Right? Many people just simply can't afford representation. And so governments are trying to work their ways around that. They're sort of loosening the requirements in many states for lawyers to do legal work. We now have in Arizona something called certified paraprofessionals, certified legal paraprofessionals that can do a lot of the things that the lawyers do, but at a lower rate, right? And so they're trying to sort of democratize lawyering to some degree, which is sort of what I'm trying to do, right? On with what we do on YouTube. On our separate law channel, I put together these big, long presentations, 30 minutes, a lot of detail on the law so that people can educate themselves and then make good decisions for themselves. I wrote a whole book about how to sort of represent yourself or how to work with a public defender in a criminal case, what you should be doing, 9 steps on how to get that all organized so that people know a little bit more about how to protect themselves as they go through the system. And if they can't afford a lawyer, well, at least they got a book that they can then read and then talk to their public defender about and say, why aren't you doing this or this or this? So, I think a lot of people are trying to help, but law is one of those things that you can't really scale easily because there's a lot of hard thinking that goes into it. And it's a people business in many ways. And so it's without money, unfortunately, in many situations, there's not much you can do. You got to find the money is really what it comes down to. Ship of Theseus says, they use me to justify gender confirmation surgery as well. Be careful what you wish for. I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Like removing parts off the ship. Yeah. Monster One says, yeah, I bet on the over, baby. I got you covered, Monster One. The over is always a safer bet for this show. Unless it's Tuesdays. Then we're right on time. I'm Not Guest says, how would you feel about forcing lawyers to be public defenders for a minimum number of years before being able to be employed in private practice? So I don't like the idea of being forced to do anything, right? I would have been unhappy with that, but I would just because it's forced. But I think from a conceptual perspective, that's not a bad idea. Being, you kind of, public defenders are sort of a unique breed, right? They're amazing people, but they are working for the government, right? I would have never done well working for the government. So something like that wouldn't have been a good fit for me. If that was required in order to become a criminal defense lawyer, I probably would not have done it. So you might have dissuaded a lot of good people from throwing their hat into the ring. Now there are some states that really encourage you to do pro bono work and reduce your fees. Arizona has what's called the Modest Means Foundation. So there are new lawyers, I'm Not Guest, at the Modest Means Foundation. When I was a brand new lawyer, I signed up for that. And you sort of agree to reduce your rates. So rather than, several $100s an hour, you reduce it down to, I think, $75 an hour. And so it's more accessible to a lot more people. So, but it's a good idea. A lot of people are thinking about ways to do this. We'll see where it goes. The real NY Renal MD is in the house says, very happy about this ruling. It affects some of my colleagues, was a good ruling. People should be free to decide on their own what to do with their bodies. It's from the good doctor in the house. Thank you, good doctor. You had an imposter on the show today. Not sure who that was. We have Sweet Potato says, can you educate us on our rights if we have not received a termination letter, but are asked to leave and turn in our badge? I saw a TikTok video of this happening. Thinking trespassing laws so we can stand firm, but not be arrested. So Sweet Potato, I'd love to, but I really can't because if it even kind of smells like legal advice, that's a problem, right? And so I can talk a lot about things, but if you're asking about a particular situation that kind of might actually be happening to you, and we're having a one-to-one conversation about that, that might be construed by the state bar as actual legal advice for you. So although I'd love to, it's just something that is a little bit too too close to legal advice. And so I'm going to steer away from that. I hope you understand that. We have another one from Three Girlies says, Rob, make sure you eat fresh pineapple. It has bromelain in there. It will stop the coughing. All right. Pineapple, lometamine, horse suppositories, licorice tea. Got it all. I'm going to be loaded up. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we got one more from locals. Dr. Fauci, the Guardian said I'm the sexiest man alive. So you know that I give the best medical advice. Did you see that? I saw that. Dr. Fauci, the sexiest man alive. Not sure who's reading the Guardian, but I venture to guess that's not particularly accurate. All right, my friends, that was it from the questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Big shout outs over to Sir Kexalot. We've got Jeremy Matrita, Three Girlies, V Antikus Prime, Dallas Photography. We got Farmer's Daughter, Jeremy Matrita, all over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Over on YouTube, we've got Zulu, we've got Lean, we got Samantha Richardson, we got Holy F, my S stinks, we've got Vijaya, we've got Paula Nix with a super chat says, I believed I saw Eric Coomer behind Antifa on 11/14/20 beside the Supreme Court. Very interesting. Eric Coomer, I'm not sure who that is. Is he a J6? I'm not sure who that is. Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you for that there, Paula Nix. All of those came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Want to welcome some new members who joined up. No one you know signed up yesterday, joined us for the year. Big welcome to no one you know. We have KTE Dot in the house, Pink Peep in the house, had a conversation today. Lachina James signed up. We've got Jesse Wright. We have Michael Krogan, who signed up last week. We had all these amazing people, including Secret Squirrel, Almec Sunshine, Marty Lund, Geomancy Games, subscribe on YouTube, Rod the Odd, BJJ is not a crime, Captain Jim, Sincerely Sam, Me Loves Dogs, all available at watchingthewatchers.locals.com if you want to sign up. We have a monthly Zoom meetup coming up very, very soon. Saturday, October 2nd, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a lot of fun. And we hope that you do join us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, my friends, that is it from me for the day. I've got a lot of medicine. I've got a whole shopping list from the show that I got to go get. And so we're going to leave it right there. I want to thank you for being a part of the program. Ask that you join us again tomorrow when we come back and do it all again at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.